quite strongly felt that I wanted to work with Gavris. I'd wanted to work with him for a long time before, and I couldn't really find a thing to do with him. And I got involved with that, and I remember bringing up his name, and everyone was like, I don't know about Gavris. It's maybe a little bit too far out there. As soon as everyone agreed to it, I started to think, wow, everybody wants to do something kind of on the same page, and then we're all thinking of doing something really different, because Roman's style.
Do you want to say something to the camera about the show?
What do you want to do?
What did you think of the show?
I ain't got an answer for that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the show's been great. Overwhelmingly positive response. Feels like it's really connected with people who are fans of the brand. Seems to really awoken people's love for Adidas. It's nice the way we present modern products in the context of vintage products, and also to show the lineage of sports technologies that have been developed through Adidas footwear from the 60s right through to 2014, things like Boost.
Okay. And where's it going to next?
Paris.
And do you hope it has the same sort of impact there?
It's the first time we're taking it outside the UK. It'll be interesting to see because there's a really strong connection between Adidas and France. A lot of the manufacturing was done in France in the 1980s. But France doesn't necessarily have the same subcultures that we have in the UK. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the response is.
Alright, what's your name?
My name's Gary Aston and I curated the exhibition and I executed.
Good. Alright, thanks a lot.
Someone who lives life on his own terms completely. Yeah, he's like the kind of guy who gets into fights in a tuxedo. It's like, I mean, hopefully that's how people interpret it. There's something innately elegant, and well, especially in people who, in foreign people's eyes about French people, that just kind of seem very classy 100% of the time. And I think even though there's a lot of energy and the commercial is very visceral, it does still have a very natural elegance to it.
I've had difficulty just being able to relax.
Quite wild, hopefully pretty sexy. Something quite elegant, fast-paced about it, and quite visceral and powerful.
Think about Brazil, think about soccer, football, that's how we say it. Brazil is it. No, I don't play soccer, I wish. But my son can do it. I have two sons actually, but my older son, he actually doesn't like it. But I forced him because since it's a Brazilian, culture. I'm planning on being in Brazil for the World Cup. Hopefully I'll watch Brazil on the finals. I really hope to be on the stadium, hopefully on the ground. I don't know if I will get there, on the ground to feel all the energy from people. I hope so. I don't play soccer anymore, but when I was a kid, my brother and his friends were always playing in the garden, so they'll let me join in their game. But I wasn't very good at it, and I'll kick them in the shin, and then they'll get mad and throw me out. I don't play soccer. In Brazil, the tradition is boys play soccer and girls play with fashion. E aí, mano, is a good one to know. It's like, what's up, bro? If you see somebody cute in the street, you can say, gato. If you're a gringo and you hear some Brazilians going around, you say, you're a gato. So you know what that means.
It's shine from the inside and feel confident. That's what people see when they look at you.
I love being around someone that's just oozes with love for themselves, not in an arrogant way or anything, even if they look like just aggies, they can still look like the sexiest person alive.
Interview with Paul from Notes in Manchester, Wednesday, what's the date today? 25th, in the skate shop. So Paul, introduce yourself.
I'm Paul Rogers and I'm the manager of Note.
Okay. And what kind of thing do you do at Notes?
We sell skateboards, trainers, clothes. Yeah, that sort of stuff. Yeah. Skateboards, trainers and clothes.
Right. And what inspires what you do?
Not sure. Our hobbies, our interests, our friends, our fashions, music. I don't know, whatever we're into.
And is there a big skate scene in the Northwest? And in particular, is there a skate scene in the Northern Quarter?
I'd say, I don't know about the Northern Quarter, I mean there's skate shops in the Northern Quarter, but there's a big skate scene in Manchester. Probably one of the biggest in the country. There's big scenes in Liverpool and Leeds and Huddersfield too, but I think Manchester, given up, with all the students and stuff, there's a particularly big scene here.
Okay. So what have been the best best bits of your career and the worst bits?
In terms of doing a shop, I don't know. I mean, I think the best things have been like the video premieres and like the get-togethers we've organised. Just any excuse to bring the whole scene together, get everyone in one place at one time. They've probably been the highlights and the most memorable things. Yeah, and I guess the fact we managed to keep the shop open for 15 years and been like relatively successful. That's an overall quite a kind of, I don't know, a highlight for me.
And what are your plans for the future?
Well, for the minute, I don't know. We've just opened this new shop on Thomas Street. That's for the future. I haven't really thought much past that. Just to carry on doing what we're doing. Yeah, perhaps try and grow the website side of the business. Other than that, we're pretty happy with the presence we've got in there in Manchester. So yeah, just work on our website a bit.
Why the change? Why did you change from the shop where you were to this shop? Both shops are both in the Northern Quarter.
Yeah, we've still got the other shop. We're doing two shops now. We just ran out of room in that shop. We did this shop to concentrate on the clothes and the trainers, and that shop's to concentrate on the skateboards and the skateboard brands, the skateboard kind of t-shirts and shoes and stuff. This shop's a bit more fashion. That one's strictly kind of hardware and proper hardcore skateboard stuff.
Football t-shirts, skateboarding t-shirts. So
And what's your favourite thing right now?
Favourite thing in the shop?
Not necessarily in the shop, what's your favourite thing at the moment?
In general? I don't know, I personally like going out on a road bike. I've got like a bike that I like riding up into the peaks and stuff like that. And, yeah, and just getting out of the town centre for a bit and chilling. I spend so much time in the town centre, it's nice to get out into the country a bit on my bike and go blow some steam off and stuff. So yeah, that's probably my favourite thing to do right now.
What kind of bike have you got?
Well, the road bike's like just a Bianchi bike. I don't know what much about it is. Just a nice road bike, got gears on it and stuff, and nice and fast and light.
And do you still skate a lot?
Me? No, not really. I mean, my background was more BMX, that's how I got into all this. I've always been into cycling and stuff like that. But yeah, these days, I tend to get 1 or 2 days off a week, and on those days I just get on my road bike and get out of the city, so yeah, I haven't really been down any skate parks or out on my street related to
It's just, what I'm saying is that it's one thing to get a shot at we're an integral part of this earth as humans, you know what I mean? And we should be of an intelligence and of awareness by now that we know it's not good to fight, it's not good to discriminate, it's not really good to knock people down, do you know what I mean? It's not good to be eating and living well when people have nothing to eat. It's not good to be taking the piss out of people who don't know that nasty way of thinking. In other words, you know, your Amazonian Indian who's getting kicked off his land so that McDonald's can go and make some more fucking space for some cows so we can all have cheap hamburgers. What I'm saying is we must all help each other, make each other aware. And although every man thinks, well, it's nothing to do with me and why should I bother and life's hard enough anyway, there's still something we can do, I know it. There's still something we can do from the fact that I'd like to be able to walk down the street and you see the next man and he goes, alright there, how you doing? What is it? Pussy doing that? Nobody's been a pussy doing that, do you know what I mean? And people are more and more realising this, so we have to create a vibe to ourselves. We need each other. You know, in a way, we're being run. You know, we're in a system, it's being run by some people who sit at the top. They have a privileged position there. They're not using that position properly. Like the Director of Public Prosecutions gets caught in King's Cross. Like, you know, the Guinness guy, you know what I mean, not happy with the millions he's already got, has to try and scam a few more million. We're dealing with greedy people who are on power trips that are...
Oh yes indeed, I am very addicted to social media. Why? Because when I'm bored, it's the only thing that keeps me entertained, you know. I think a little bit and I have to watch out because as soon as I'm not doing something and I'm bored and I'm like, okay, so it's instant. I take the phone and I'm like, let me check.
I love looking at images and fashion and different pictures, so I think that's the addicting thing with Instagram is being stimulated in that way all the time.
I would like to buy a phone stick for Hippo or whatever. You have to make it yourself. So they're all like the gadgets squirreling away in their shed and creating these things. So again, it's some of them, you know, the last night Bill who made this fantastic discovery about hippos, he had a hydrophone attached to two sticks that's wrapped around a hamster run. Yeah, it's a hamster run. Yeah, it was a hamster run. And there's another size along last night was using a pair of his mother-in-law's tights stretched over a very important piece of kit that cost £500,000 that normally test vibrations on jumbo jets. So they're all sort of cobbled together from all different things. And they're both monkeys. You know, I was using a garden ornament because there've been no leopards in Mombasa for 20 years, so I had to go and get this garden ornament to show them. And then when I was doing the walk, I had a broken cut that actually broke halfway through the experiment. I was thinking this isn't going to work, but it still did work. So
you're talking about a lot of exotic animals. There are people at home now thinking, I talk to my dog or cat every day and they understand every word, and I can understand that, you know, I can understand noises that they make too. Is that a version of the same thing? Because some people say they absolutely understand, you know, dogs bark for a certain thing, or cats.
I think over a million too. Instagram, I'm about to be a million now.
So we just did about animals speaking to each other, but I do know that dogs, for instance, and the reason why they're man's best friends is because we have a really fantastic ability to read each other's emotions and communication. So whether you really understand what it's saying all the time with those loving, adoring eyes and, you know, the yelps or whatever, but there is definitely an ease of communication there.
Which do you think was the most effective communicator? Was it the dolphin?
There was some surprises. I mean, the chimpanzees were extraordinary. We were in last night's show, but some of the things that surprised me most were some of the smaller animals that you wouldn't expect to have a sophisticated language. Yes, spiders, but then like tonight's show, there's a bird, it's called a chickadee, that has,
Did you always feel like there was a little bit of you left in there?
But according to how those notes are played, it has an open-ended language, as do we, and it's so open the language that it requires the rules of grammar to control it. So they're like these English teachers flying around in the sky, and it makes you look at the birds in your garden in a completely different light.
We're done for time, but can you do a bird noise for us?
Industries or they follow things that their family have done before them, and you really can't help yourself. You just keep coming back.
It's interesting you talk about your family, because we talked a bit about the present, but I want to go back and talk about sort of your earliest memories of fashion. And you mentioned that idea of clothes as communication. And were you quite aware of that as a young boy growing up, looking at people and sort of reading things about them based on how they presented themselves?
Yeah, I mean, my earliest memory was walking down the King's Road with my parents, and it was mid to late 70s punk. I was very young, and I was holding my mother's hand and my father's hand, and I had grey flannel trousers on, very much as I was wearing today, Italian chocolate suede loafers, a little cashmere V-neck, and I'd see these punks on the King's Road in this square where they'd all sit with brightly coloured tartan and hair, and I felt, it was fear. I felt fear, but the fear came from observing how they were dressed. So at a very early age, I understood communication through clothing, or the power of that communication through clothing. And I think that's what a lot of designers maybe subconsciously try to understand, or maybe they don't understand, or maybe they do. I don't know. But that's how I felt it really clearly at a young age. And I thought you could communicate some kind of feeling, or some people want to call it energy, through how you're dressed. And that obviously makes sense through uniform and how people portray themselves. And maybe that's what led me to Savile Row, ultimately, because of the power or the energy connection. Maybe, I don't know. I'm still thinking about it.
What was the point though where the idea of a career in fashion entered your consciousness? Was it when you were still at school? Were you a boy?
It still hasn't, Liv. I don't know if I've ever done fashion, per se. I don't know what I think I do, actually, because it's creation and it's ideas, and sometimes it manifests itself in the clothing. Well, the clothing part, as a designer these days and for the last 15 years, has been such a small part of it, because you're building the layers of the brand. Well, that's how I see design. I see everything. So it's the photography, it's the stationery, it's the graphics, it's the context, it's colour, it's not just the actual clothing.
So what
it's a large part of it, but
a new online community.
it's
So
not
like show
essential.
studios.
That's why I never became a tailor. So I'm a designer.
No, I just
full stop.
These,
I understand the
I
discipline,
these
and I learned the discipline
creative
craft,
people through
but I didn't focus
Tumblr
on that
and
because
Instagram.
what I've observed over the years is that you could be one or two people in these
I actually
creative
have some
sectors.
pictures.
You could be the technical person, or you could be the idea person. And it's
I
very,
love
very
September
different.
because
Do you think
all the
that
new magazines
the
comes
row
out
hasn't quite adapted to that? Do you think that's the problem? It's too focused on the precision and the detailing and not enough on...
I don't know.
Like show and tell, this is awesome.
Yeah, so
Yeah, like this just came out in another magazine. It's like just portraits of
sexist,
just cool kids
misogynistic.
that I found on Tumblr.
You found them all on Tumblr?
Yeah, some of them
wasn't a nice
friends,
environment.
family.
It was archaic,
Just
not everywhere. Just
Why do you
certain
love the internet so
elements.
much? Because you're so pro Tumblr, you're social media,
I made
but
a real point of it.
you also have this magazine side to you. I wonder how you sort of bring the two together.
Yeah.
Just to rebalance the energy, because it can't be right. That can't be right.
Everyone
And
thinks
it's
I'm
not,
like
it's not Savile Row's fault. It's just the way that some sectors
just
of
like
work
you know,
or
just
industry
use my
just
Instagram and Twitter and
time. Couture was very firmly
I suppose I
in Paris.
just
Really didn't have anything to do with London, with the exception of
use what I
people
have
like
for
Mark
work.
and Hartnell
Simple, you know,
and Hardy
just whatever
Amies,
is in front
who
of
were
you, I
existent,
just
but they didn't have
try to
the power and
incorporate
influence of the French
So you use it more to get
country.
inspiration
I think
than
it's
to put
something
yourself out
culture.
there.
Oh yeah, totally.
The English way
when I
of
do research,
promotion up until
I don't do with
10 years
Google
ago
anymore. I
was
just do
do
on
the
Tumblr
work very
or
well,
you know,
be very
I just
quiet, be very
hashtag
discreet, be very elegant, almost as if not to be noticed.
stuff on the research.
And
so much.
It is.
And I ask
That's
people,
what I love about
my followers,
to be very
to help me.
reserved.
So I'm kind of
So
like
it's a bit
cheating,
proper.
really.
Don't shout about it
It's
too much.
almost
Make your
nice.
point when
It's nice to do it
necessary
with everyone and
But don't be shouting
collaborating.
from the rooftops. But ultimately,
It's made you quite
when
a celebrity. Do you like that, or do you not think about it like that?
You have to develop.
I don't know. It's the only nice thing
shout
that
as elegantly as possible with your words.
So is that what Squire was about? Let's talk about Squire, because you've mentioned it in
Yeah,
passing,
sorry,
but I want to
maybe.
pick up. Was it about shouting, saying this is what I'm about, this is my ideas?
Well, I went to St Martin's for an interview to try and get into the fashion course, and I didn't get in. And then I went to try and get in on the fine art course, and I didn't get in. So I thought, oh, okay, I'm just going to start my own thing. And what I wanted to do with Squire, which I started in 1990, was to unconsciously, because it wasn't conscious at the beginning, is to challenge the boundaries between fashion, art, design, because they were very, very separate.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was all the same thing. I mean, I wanted to sculpt, and making clothing or looking at people or directing people to make clothing is exactly the same thing. It's a 3D object. That's all it is. You can walk all the way around. You can examine texture, context. It's no different from anything else. So I started Squire because there weren't any clothes. this is the second reason why I started clothes, that I wanted to wear. In 1991, everything was wide and everything was Italian. There were none of these brands. I mean, everything was Armani. It was a really strange time. And I wanted narrow trousers, slim silhouettes that were modern. This word modern and minimalism, which everybody throws around now, really didn't exist in the 90s, with the exception of what was happening in Japan and Com and Izzy and Yoji, hands down, and ultimately Prada, who was probably the only Italian that focused on that area, because the rest of Italy just ignored modernism through the 90s until Tom Ford arrived at Gucci.
You mentioned, sort of trying to break down these boundaries between art and design and fashion, because Squire did so much in terms of the people that were involved in it. And talk to me about some of the artists that you worked with, Alan Jones, Bridget Riley.
Yeah, it was serendipity. I mean, in 92 I had a studio in Brewer Street, and along the street was Dazed and Confused, started in the same year or just afterwards. And the first three people that knocked on my door were Katie Grand, Simon Foxton and Nick Knight, and Isabella Blow. Those are the first people that came through my door. You have to remember, in those days there was no internet, there was no mobile phone. It was word of mouth. And Isabella, for example, came up with Alexander McQueen, and he was in his last year at St Martin's. And he came in, and he was really shy, and he sat on my couch, and I had this tiny little attic in Brewer Street. There was an old brothel, which Izzy loved. And she said, meet Alexander, I'm going to buy his last collection, and he's the future of women's fashion. So those first few people that started to come through were really, really, really important. Helmut Lang was a real fan at the beginning, and a lot of the moleskin things that I did, the covert coats, the trousers, were popularised by Helmut in later years. So I was really lucky that people that were interested, magazines would shoot something or write about something, but people couldn't see the imagery or the collection for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. So it had to happen by word of mouth. It's obviously the natural progression was to get a space, which I got in Clifford Street, and it was an old art gallery, and originally an old brothel as well. Funnily enough, there was a theme popping into the work, and it was next door to something called the Bucks Club on Clifford Street. So I moved in, and I didn't want a lot of rails, and I was interested in art, obviously. I was specifically interested in pop art at the time. And if you remember, 93, 94, 95, 96, contemporary art hadn't made its mark. Okay, a lot of pop artists like Alan Jones, Bridget Riley, who's technically a pop artist, even Warhol to a certain extent, they're images that people had seen. There were a lot of English pop artists and non-English pop artists, people like Edoardo Paolozzi, who's very fashionable now, have been the last 5 or 6 years, that people just hadn't seen and weren't aware of, and they didn't even rate. So I wanted to have a space that was part art gallery and part design gallery. So the clothing would sit in the centre, and the art, and to a certain extent furniture, would be on the outside. And this was before places like Dover Street Market and Colette, I think,